Hey, Kevin here from Central Heating. So we're on to part two of our mini series on what to look for when hiring a mechanical contractor or HVAC contractor. So part two, I want to touch on equipment, and I don't mean brand. All the brands to me are fairly equal. There is some premium level brands, so I like to tell people to think about that like a car. There's Mercedes and then there's Chevrolet. Doesn't mean they both won't get you from A to B. So heat or cool your house in this instance. Just means there's some more premium features on them. So what I'm talking about when I talk about equipment is some of the shortcuts that can be taken in order to shave money off your bills and give you a less than superior installation. So one thing I always focus on is trying to have matching equipment in a house. So try to have a matching coil with a matching air conditioner, for example. Some contractors will try and cut corners by putting in an A coil instead of a case coil, and I'm going to show you that in the video, the difference between the two and why it's important. Another thing is one piping furnaces. I see this a lot in this area for some reason. Instead of taking the intake pipe for the combustion air to the outside on a furnace, they just do the exhaust. And that can lead to problems down the road with your heat exchanger getting clogged. Tankless water heaters being installed without service valves on them so we can flush them properly. So I'm going to get into and show you some of these things in a screen share with tip number two.
Okay, so this is a case coil. So there's, which I'm going to show you behind there, a coil, and this is an N-shaped coil behind there. So what's the advantage? This matches the furnace frame. So you can see this sits right on top of the furnace. This edge right here around the bottom sits right on top of the furnace tight. And it's also built in so the airflow runs across the coil. Now I'm going to show you an uncased coil. So this is an uncased coil that you build into the existing tin work. So when you build this into the tin work, it's very hard to get at to clean it out, and you have to rely on a good installation or an installer that knows what they're doing, that blocks off the sides so the air doesn't bypass the coil and effectively not use the equipment correctly. The other thing that can be done to kind of cheapen the install for the installer is they just use an A coil that's unmatched. So if we install a ream system, we use a ream coil. They've been tested together, and then you can see what kind of efficiencies you get out of it. You have no idea what efficiency you get out of a mix match system. So that's why it's important that you use a case coil. So for maintenance and for the full efficiency that the equipment is spec'd for. Okay, so this is a furnace with a single pipe. So this is the exhaust pipe here. So think about your car's muffler. This allows the exhaust to exit outside the car. Well, this allows the exhaust to exit outside the building. This is the intake for the combustion air. So this is your cold air return that circulates the air around your house. This is a supply. This here it is what feeds the burner for combustion air. So this picture that I just pulled off online is just saying that debris can go right down in there. You're supposed to put a twin elbow on top of this. So let's be clear, the manufacturer allows you to do this as long as there's enough combustion air in the building. And I'm not going to get into that. Most buildings nowadays are pretty tight, so you're pushing it and you put the building under negative pressure, which affects other appliances like this water heater behind there. But for our intents and purposes, my biggest beef with this is it's not that expensive to do. You have to drill another hole to the outside, but what it prevents is debris from inside the house getting into the combustion chamber, which ends up wrecking the heat exchangers on furnaces much quicker. So this is not something you're going to notice right away. Down the road, you're going to get a no heat issue. Someone's going to come and say you got a bad heat exchanger. If there's a lot of dust and debris in the air in whatever room this is in, and keep in mind this is suction, so it's going to suck it in. It's going to bring it into the burner and then kind of snowball effect and wreck your heat exchanger. So it's not always possible to two pipe furnaces, and if you do, then you have to. I always try and do it, or we always try and do it at Central Heating. just to make sure down the road there's not an issue with your. Okay, so this is the bottom of the tankless water heater. So the point of these valve kits, and I see this all the time where a tankless has been installed. In Simcoe County, our water is very hard here. So if you're not running a softener, that's another issue. But even if you are running a softener, you need to yearly flush your tankless to avoid the heat exchanger from gumming up and wrecking it. And again, that's not covered under warranty if you're not doing your maintenance on that. They will straight up deny warranties for bad heat exchangers if there's no maintenance proof and the water is really hard going into it. So I'll explain a little bit about what this valve does. This is the cold supply shutoff here, the yellow valve, and this is the hot supply shutoff valve here, again yellow. These here are the ISO part of the kit. So we can shut these two valves off, open these two valves, and then we flush muriatic acid or vinegar, cleaning vinegar through here. So you can kind of see it in this little picture here. It gives you some kind of an example, but basically you flush from one side of the bucket to the other, and that removes scale from the heat exchanger. So one of the other ways that I see shortcuts, and then you can't do maintenance in this area.